within the department. So if you don't know who I am Dan Herbert. I don't know if the other members in the room want to introduce themselves quickly.
Can you hear us okay?
I think so, yep.
Got it. All right, I'm Jim Adams, also a member of the faculty, and yeah, part of the cultural competency group.
Eric Miller, also part of this working group.
Yes, and I believe we have Ingrid online, and unfortunately Marie's unable to join us today, but that rounds out the group. So we put together some materials, identified some videos that we're going to watch on the topic of universal design, introduction, case studies, and discussion in the context of systems engineering. So outline, we will have a very brief introduction to how things are going to go today. Then we'll have 2 short videos. There'll be about 15 total minutes of videos today. And then we're going to have a brief discussion on guidelines because we want to have a good discussion on this topic. Hear your thoughts, share your perspectives on this idea of universal design. And then we'll also have some potential actions for you to do, things you can get involved in right now with the department, but also more broadly. So with that, quick introduction. Again, as I mentioned, this is a presentation, and really we're hoping to have a really good discussion for a majority of this on universal design in systems engineering and in engineering in general. So some of you may have already watched the videos, so we want to at least advertise that we are going to be using a Google Jamboard to facilitate, it can be an anonymized discussion. You're also feel free to, come off mic and stuff when we get to that portion, and we'll have, again, the guidelines for that later. But if you want to, scan this QR code or go to this link, I don't know if someone wants to put this link into the Zoom chat so that those can access it. This is what we'll be using after we watch the videos. If you've already watched the videos and you want to start adding responses or your thoughts to this Jamboard, please feel free to start to do that. But we will be watching the videos that we linked in the announcement for this particular talk. So give everyone just a quick second. Thank you, Erica, for putting it into the chat. Again, we'll give more guidance on Jamboards when we get to that section, but we'll be using this a little bit later. I think with that, we can get into the videos so we can learn a little bit more about this topic. So the first video here is a pretty good overview video. The link is there directly on YouTube if you want to just watch it on your own. Otherwise, I will be playing it now. And it's about 8 minutes long, and we'll come back and get to the next video.
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Part 2, Universal Design. The U.S. Census Bureau projects that the future workforce pool will include more women, people of color, and non-U.S. born citizens. America is truly a melting pot. It's one of our greatest strengths. However, in engineering, levels of gender, ethnic, and disability representation could be improved. In the past, design wasn't intended to exclude users. It just wasn't intended to include everyone either. Nowadays, we can do better. It's imperative that engineering designs are useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities.
In engineering specifically, we have to question the way that the system has been developed.
Sorry. So do you want me to switch back to my computer speaker? Is that okay? That's all right.
Do systems engineers come up with some solutions to share with them?
Right, well, hopefully it's loud enough to do.
Suppose it comes out of this is you have to build something for any and all uses, foreseeable uses. That's part of our code.
Universal design is good design, and it's good design for everyone. Universal design is as simple as a child in a playground making a game that everyone can play, right? It can be so simple. It's truly like a connection between people and making sure that you're serving them with your design.
Dipped curbs, also known as curb cutouts, were not invented until 1967, when city planner Selwyn Goldsmith observed that people with disabilities were often unable to cross the street without assistance. A pilot project launched, and it quickly became apparent that a curb cutout not only improved the lives of people in wheelchairs, but also parents wheeling strollers, merchants using carts. This was a clear example that universal design is good design.
So one thing I like is not only the dip curve that is just easier for a wheelchair to go through, but the one that has the braille or the dots on it, because I'm a really busy person. I'm always multitasking. And sometimes those little dots really help me notice I'm getting really close to the edge. It's a very, very useful technology for more than just people in wheelchairs.
If I build a gadget, I want to make sure that everybody can use it. Short, tall, big or small, whatever race, whatever nationality. I want everybody to be able to use that in the same exact fashion.
On the research side of things, I specialize in affordable housing, and I look at equity in housing, but also universal design in housing. Can we make sure that everyone can live in these homes? We can do really small changes in the beginning of a project that can make a house so much more livable for such a longer period of time, where people won't need someone in there providing them assistance 24/7. Wider doorways, wider bathrooms that folks can get in and out, little grab bars. So installing a grab bar after the tile's put in place is much more costly than installing it before.
When you have diverse and inclusive thought, you get better products across the board.
If you don't include the people, as many people in a diverse group of folks when you're designing, you're going to make mistakes.
Today, machine learning and artificial intelligence are driving the fourth industrial revolution. It's critical that engineers building the algorithms powering this technology also practice the principles of universal design.
If you're looking at AI, right, you may have this group of, majority folks in the room that don't think about the problem of, hey, what if AI doesn't recognize that facial tone that is not the same? That's not white, right?
We know that there's a problem there. We know that there is a lack of diversity in that space. And we see that with like face recognition, how people of color, based off of our features aren't necessarily always captured in those frames. And one of the main reasons is because of the fact that we're not necessarily the ones behind the products or the works that's being designed.
It's commonly understood that many of the face IDs and other types of computer vision technologies didn't work well for people with darker skin tones originally, because they didn't have people with darker skin tones testing it or designing the infrastructure.
The whole thing behind machine learning is, what is the data that you're putting in? If you don't put in the right data, all the data, not just the right data, all of the data, then what you get out is going to be trash.
As we continue to grow, as the generation continues to change, as AI and as tech continues to change, there's going to be a high need for adjustments to be made to design and processes internally.
The way I've seen it done best now is we'll go to a social scientist and we'll get a slew of questions, and then we'll put out a survey. We'll get the survey, we'll get the data back from the survey, and then that is what we incorporate into our algorithm design. And that's the best way I've seen it work so far.
There are going to be continuous iterations, like that's going to be the natural part of us getting it right.
Universal design is not a one-stop solution. You've got to continue to iterate. So if someone comes to you and says, I had a challenge with this, and this is, I think, how you can fix it, you go back and you redesign it, because you want to ensure, just like all engineering principles, we're building it for all uses.
If they don't adapt to the red flags that they're seeing or the gaps that they're seeing, then they risk falling behind.
Although we've talked a lot of doom and gloom about AI and machine learning, I think it offers the opportunity to remove bias. We can ensure on the front end we get all of that data in. We take out the middleman, we take out the human error, and we allow the computer to make a prediction for us that includes everybody in our design.
We stand to gain a competitive advantage by including the voices that have typically been left behind in the past.
I think it's really important to think about our own personal lifestyles. And many times people label me as like an engineer, and I quickly remind them I'm a human being first, right? Before I engineer anything, I'm just a person. And one thing I do personally, outside of just focus on the engineering work I do, is trying to connect to culture, and trying to connect to different cultures and connect to different people and being as humane as I can.
Universal design, good design, requires us as engineers to think beyond ourselves, to consider the end user, the people that we are trying to help with our design. America's strength is in our diversity. This includes our diversity of ideas. As engineers embrace the principles of universal design, we will continue to create a more inclusive world.
Right. Hopefully that was interesting overview. So, that had some examples in there, but we want to show and highlight one more example. Let me go to this. So this particular video is called Diversity and Inclusion in Tech and R&D. And there are 3 case studies there. We're just going to watch the few-minute clip on the 3rd case study in particular. So again, if you want to watch this separately, it starts at 11:07 in the YouTube link there. So we'll get into that one now.
And again, check your assumptions on what the average user looks like and think critically about whether assuming averageness is hurting your product's usability. Okay, cool. So this is the one that got me interested in stories like this. So this is about virtual reality. So here's a brief overview of virtual reality technology. So 1956, we had the Sensorama, which is this thing right here on the right. You sat down and you stuck your head in it. And then there were just like a series of developments over time, just like there was a head-mounted device, then they added motion tracking. In the 60s, a flight simulator was developed for the Air Force, which vastly sped up the development of headsets. In 1968, there's the Sword of Damocles, which is a picture to the right. And so that connected to a computer rather than to a camera. In 72, GE made a flight simulator. In 75, Video Place was released. It was the first fully interactive VR platform. And then from then on, tons of flight simulators have been made in the public and private sector, including the military and NASA. In 91, Virtuality was the first mass-produced VR entertainment system. So once it hits the 90s, they start becoming like a very fun gaming thing. But then there also is like a more serious application, which I think is still very effective to this day as a PTSD treatment, but it was called Virtual Vietnam, and it was used to recreate war zone scenarios for veterans receiving exposure therapy for PTSD. Cut to nowish, Facebook, Google, Sony, and Samsung all announced that they're getting into the VR game. And so, like, as you've all seen, like a million ads for the metaverse. Obviously, VR is a big deal right now. Much of the underlying technology for VR was developed by the US military starting in the 1960s. This resulted in, surprise, mostly cisgendered white men being used in the QA process. But I can't imagine that that would cause a problem. So this is so interesting because this happened to me and I wasn't sure why until I looked into this and figured it out. So you may hear basically anybody that isn't a white dude bringing up that VR headsets make them experience motion sickness. And this is not just a coincidence. There's actual physiological factors that contribute to this, which were not controlled for in the development of VR headsets. So I won't read through all of these, but these are like basically like a bunch of like heavy science jargon on things that like affect whether or not somebody's going to be more susceptible to motion sickness when using a VR headset. So it's like the distance between the pupils of your eyes, peripheral field vision, spatial magnitude of postural sway, which is like, how still is your body on like an average day? But I am not I'm no scientist, so you guys can read this and come to whatever conclusions you want. But basically, gender-based differences make it so that if you're a woman, you're much more likely to have motion sickness when you put on a VR headset, just because they've been developed in a way that prioritizes like male features. Very similar takeaways here again, just considering whether you're prioritizing one group over another. And then this is kind of, to me, this is like a chicken or the egg thing, like I just feel like there's a lot of like bias around like, oh, women aren't as interested in VR. And it's like, well, I mean, probably because they'd probably be more interested if it didn't make them like, car sick. So that would make it a little bit more enjoyable. So to wrap up, again, originally I made this presentation for my company, and we do a lot of boat puns because we do marina management software. So that's why Popeye is here. It's not really relevant in this context, but as engineers, we aren't necessarily creating a physical product as software engineers, but it would be wise to learn from those before us and make sure we consider a diverse group of users when developing our product. And this can obviously mean diversity in so many different ways. Which is beautiful in a lot of ways. And here's my bonus slide. I just think this is really funny, and maybe you guys will too, but I'm sure a lot of you have already heard this one. So she was the first woman to go to space. It was a week-long mission, and the top NASA scientist asked if 100 tampons would be enough. And I think that just speaks for itself. And that is the end.
All right. If you're interested, I encourage you certainly to watch the other two case studies as well. So that will wrap up our video portion right now. Hopefully that was interesting, got you thinking about some ideas here. So let me get back to my slides. All right, so we went to the two videos. So you knew from there? Is that right? Sure. Okay, yeah. So as I said, we're gonna have a discussion. So Jim's gonna go over kind of some of the discussion guidelines that we have.
Yeah, so what we did is we kind of said, we know this can be a touchy area, different experiences, different thoughts, and maybe even, I'll say stresses and history related to it. So we wanted to set a few guidelines for people to kind of think about before responding or speaking up. We do want you to speak your truth. What you know, what you feel is your truth. Share from your experiences and listen to other people's experiences. Try to understand what other people are saying. So that's really a lot about listening actively. Sometimes I have a book in front of me because I'm distraction enabled, right? So ADHD kind of people. So it's good for me to like put little notes down as somebody's talking. Some people think I'm not listening, but I'm actually actively keeping track of what they're saying. Otherwise, my brain will race off somewhere. Somebody else's experiences, like the first one, your own experiences, recognize people are going to have different experiences, and those are going to build a different truth for them or for me. And we may have similar stories to share, but we may have different, you may get different outcomes from them. So just consider what everybody says is, it's legitimate. It's their experience. It's their story. It's their truth. Listen and learn. And so if you then feel like, hey, I don't agree with that, that's great. We're not expecting everybody to be the same. It's literally diversity is one of the things we're talking about here. So it's okay for disagreements to occur. We're going to talk a little bit about approaching those differences with curiosity. One of the things I just heard from an innovation speaker recently, she said, when I hear something I don't, I'm going to say, tell me more. Right? It isn't that she was actually interested, it's that she didn't understand what they said. But it's a great phrase. It's like, I feel uncomfortable with what you said, but I'm not sure why. Tell me more about what you're saying. And that might provide some more insight there. And then if you disagree, it's okay to debate ideas, but make sure we're focused on the idea and not the person that's presenting the idea, the thought, okay? let's make room for everybody. Somebody is really excited and starts running along. Sometimes I do. It's okay to kind of, help us share the space. We also have people online. I know they're not in the room, so we want to give everybody a little bit of time. And then for those on Zoom, those in the room, raise your hand. We've got people watching the Zoom room. And then here, make it clear that, hey, I want to say something. Sometimes I have fun with it. And, if Dan's talking, I go, oh. It's okay. We're not here to, tear something down or find some ultimate truth. We're here to share and be more open about this area. As noted on the slide, this is adapted from Brene Brown. She's a great author, speaker, leader of getting people through tough times and tough situations. So if you have never heard of her or read, I've watched some of her videos and things. I've read a couple of her books, really impressive. And so she came up with this short set of guidelines, and they seem to work really well in large groups and even in just one-on-one. Anybody, questions, comments? Anybody else want to throw out a guideline they may have thought of that we didn't include?
Well,
we can always come back to it.
Well, thank you.
Really kind of a heavy schedule here.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so we'll transition now into the Jamboard. Again, we shared the link. Erica, I don't know if you want to give any tips or guidance on what we're going to do here.
Yeah, so I'll put the Jamboard link in again. There's 6 pages on the Jamboard, and so each one's a different question. And we'll have the opportunity to talk, in the chat and through audio, and online and in the classroom. But if there's anything you want to add that you want to, just not have your name associated with it, the Jamboard is a great opportunity for that. So the Jamboard doesn't ask for a name; you just press a sticky note and paste it on one of those pages.
So yeah, we can have this up as well, although it's not sharing it. That's not the Zoom share. But I think we were going to pause just for a minute or two, just in case you want to think about the questions or add your responses here. And then we'll start the discussion.
I think I fixed that. You try to refresh. Awesome. Yeah, so if you only see view only on the Jamboard, just hit refresh and it'll be fixed.
If you're on a phone, I think you do. If you're on a computer, you should be able to just go through your Google account. Oh, right. In the browser. Yeah, in a browser, you just be fine there. Yeah. Okay, so we should be. Yeah. We should be shared now on Zoom as well. And at the top is where you can transition between them. Questions are listed there. And again, if you want to just raise your hand and speak out loud as well when we go through some of the questions, feel free to do that as well. Oh, sorry. Yes, I will. Here we go. Switch back. It looks like hopefully we're good on that end. Looks like a lot of people are still working on it, at least in the classroom. So maybe we'll give it another second or two. Go ahead. Right. Yeah. Why don't we begin? So, if the first question and really kind of set of questions here that we had was, what are some examples of intentional or unintentional design, more broadly, right? Product processes, policies within organizations, et cetera, that you have seen not working as intended for you or for others in your own world? And, we have this optional follow-up if you had thoughts on, how those designs might be effective to be more inclusive as well. So yeah, we see a couple of responses here already. I use a lot of text to speech. Often PDFs are locked or poorly scanned. So it sounds like you are unable to use some of the features that would maybe allow you to, properly interact with the PDF. See what else we have here. Motion detecting for water faucets and paper towel dispensers doesn't always work. Another great example here as well. Projectors in classrooms are not easy for the visually impaired. I think that is certainly something that is important, right? I want you to be able to see the content and view the content in the classroom as well. Let's see, pulse oximeters underestimate oxygen saturation for dark-skinned individuals as well there. All right, a lot more coming in here. Traffic detour design is often badly done for people using sidewalks. Yeah, very car-centric, right? Perspective on those things. Hopefully I can identify the ones I did not say yet. Limits on rides, toys aimed at children, age groups, which assume a constrained range of weights and heights to use the device, and not everyone is built the same. See the last one I think here right now, utility shifting to electronic billing, utilizing proprietary billing systems that create challenges for vision and hearing impaired, as well as rural connectivity. All really good examples here. Thank you all for sharing them. Any of you have others they want to say online or just speak to right now?
Yeah, or even discussion on anything.
Yeah,
so far.
That's true.
I mean, I'll start off one thing because I banged up my heel last Saturday snowboarding, and so I've been partially abled, and I have a crutch over here to keep the weight off my heel. And it opens my eyes. It's almost like, oh, you know what? We should all do this every now and then. Either grab a crutch or a wheelchair or cover one eye or an ear or something and just say, what's the world like from another perspective? And you start to see things that you just kind of get used to in your own ability level. How about in the room? Anybody? Any thoughts on any of these or any other topics?
I love this one with the kids because my kid is a giant, like above the 99th percentile and all the ranges and things like that. And right about the time when she was moving into a forward facing seat, they wanted to extend the range where you had to have your kid in a backwards facing seat, like not a week after I got rid of it, right? But it would have actually probably been dangerous for her to be in the backwards facing seat because she exceeded all the limits for it, right? Just being a giant that she is.
Yeah, another one that is coming is airplane seats are not classically all consumer friendly. As being a somewhat taller individual, I would, again, it's not precluding me from using it, but it makes it more uncomfortable, I guess. So that is certainly a factor as well.
And then they have problems transferring people who use wheelchairs into them.
Yep.
And then they'll break your wheelchair. Sticking
Yeah,
it down the zone. I've seen that. Yeah. This dies in the airport.
So maybe looking at question 2 is, does anyone have any thoughts on anything they have observed in terms of adjustments to make any of these options, or anything they have observed that has made ineffective design perhaps be a bit more inclusive?
I know these are anonymized, but I'm not sure I understand the one on the utilities. Utilities shifting to electronic billing using proprietary billing systems that create challenges for vision and hearing impaired in rural connectivity. Does anybody, I'm not sure if this is, I'm intrigued.
Well, government services trying to catch on online billing, but government systems are typically proprietary, so they don't have interfaces with automatic access.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're probably just not as, maybe there's not as much time invested in making it accessible more broadly, or the real connectivity, not everyone, is familiar with those systems or has the capability to use those systems. So, even though it might be easier for some, maybe it's not as easy for others to.
I guess I'm thinking about that with regards to IRS forms too. Now you can only deal on the computer on a PDF, right, kind of thing. And I used to go down to the library and pick up like 3 of them so I could scratch and do them and then mail them away, right? I think it would be very hard for people to pay their taxes now if they don't have computer access.
Yes. Access, that's probably one that we don't think of enough.
Another one's come in to better support asynchronous learning. The slide decks might be standardized to allow ease of navigation, or like chapters in YouTube videos, for example. So maybe more thinking of different learning styles, perhaps, and the ways that students may interact with our course materials, things like that. Sounds very interesting, and making those changes to accommodate more broad student methods for interacting with their courses.
I like that one. I have 2 kids, and they're, well, as all kids are, they learn at different ways and at different rates. The one likes to jump around, the other one likes to go in order. And the one that likes to jump around hates that because she can never get where she wants to go on the online learning or video or something. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas on how to automate that, maybe AI can be used to break up the video and tell what you want to go here, go here.
Yeah, so maybe thinking about question 2, I often see more effective designs are ones that are perhaps more adjustable, so they can be tailored to a specific body type or need. Sometimes some products don't have that flexibility perhaps built into their design, but at least that is maybe one mechanism that could, you're able to tailor the design, tailor the product to your specific needs. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
If I could maybe propose a little bit of synthesis on this, I think that we do a decent job designing around the legally defined groups that are different from the normal, but variations within the norm are not well accounted for. So like you're tall and you don't fit different suits, I'm wide and different suits. But that's not taken into account because not a lot of sympathy for tall people like us. Generally speaking, and I understand that, but it's also worse for people who's the next bit on everything, stuff like that, because we don't consider a variation of within the normal group, I guess, is the thing. So in the class example, that would be like designing airbags, where we define that individuals be part of the same group, but then when we're not part of the same group, yeah. So I think maybe that's here.
Sure. Yeah, I think hopefully online heard all that. The idea that we perhaps design for the regulations, as well as understanding, are we designing maybe sufficiently outside of the normal, whatever's called normal in a particular context around those regulations and things like that as well. So is there opportunity to change those regulations if those are perhaps some of the drivers of making more inclusive designs? Are there other drivers as well that might be of consideration? I think to the VR headset example in particular, right? If you want more than 50% of the population to use your product, right? You probably should design it so that they don't get sick in terms of using it. So I think there can also be, traditional profit motivation here in terms of getting your product in the hands of more people and allow them to realize the benefits that you are putting forth in its basic capabilities and things like that.
I thought Aaron's example was really cool with the different weights with your airbags, right? Because I've always been frustrated when I throw a bunch of heavy stuff in my passenger seat and then my car beeps at me the whole way home and my airbag's not on, right? But it's so clearly it has these some of these weight sensing already built in. So why can't that weight sensing be built to the pressure with the airbag would expand to or something like that?
That would cost me. Yes. So interesting, but it's again, it's a question of what incentivizes the company to do something with that.
Yeah, the money aspect is good. Am I going to get sued? Is it going to be cost effective for me to do this or not? Right?
I mean, it's not we will think the companies get this for the benefit of their share and all of that. So it's more. You could go back now look at that, but the company's absolutely going to let as many small people die as possible and full regulations they can. So
it's true.
Well, and on the less dark side, right? I mean, they're going to say here's a certain amount of money to go after a certain amount of the market, and they're going to go for the minimum. The mass of the market is. Now, what we're getting at with universal design, like Dr. Herbert said, was can we make it adjustable? Can we then? So we talked about the weights with your bags, and that's probably not that hard. I know a simple
sensor.
Or say just a simple the way they explode, the gas injects it. You have one size charge, okay, you millions of those and just put them out there. But if it's a slight change in that, if you really think about it, it's probably not as hard to solve as we first think, right? On a heavy control system. Well, we have to think about it.
And thinking what you were just saying, and they're actually thought of a way to monetize that. So you have the central portion like you were saying that targets the raw range. And then when you're selling the car, you say, oh, if we want to upgrade the airbag and get more time, you can put a different size charge in there or actually like that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that they can swipe their credit card during this ride and protect your child. Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's all we have to look at in some executives' view. You get a couple of them. Of
course, the downside of that is a lot of disabled people have using that part.
Well, I mean, yes, but you care about that. We'll say, well, you just need to stand here.
The two other, I think similar ones kind of came in that are making good points on the cultural differences side. Especially designs, products, whatever that spans the entire globe. So an example might be how other cultures use certain technologies, considering, that particular angle as well. And the related one I saw was for software, it's important to design support for many languages from the beginning, for example, right? Different languages are, go different directions, or I'm sure there's other factors as well that building software in a way that supports the cultures and the languages of different individuals is important. And maybe you trying to do that after the fact won't actually allow it to work well within those different cultural contexts and things like that as well. So I think the culture side is probably another important aspect to be considering here.
Yeah, anybody else hear the report that GPT-3 or whatever, ChatGPT-3?
We're on 4 now, yeah. Yeah.
It is able to translate not only language, but what do you call it? It's kind of intent conversation. So they were translating into some really out there languages with just a few 100,000 speakers. And the people who speak that language said that was well constructed. Like, it's not the same form as in English, so you have to swap things around. So we're getting tools now, I believe. Now we're getting some tools that are going to enable some of these things, like different languages. Possibly, it included culture in that language model. There were cultural differences embedded in some of the languages. So that got me thinking, are there, seeing as we have a human factors and a modeling leaders here in the room, are there models of these things that we can test our systems with, our designs? I mean, there's some human factors ones, there's standards on human factors, but broader?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, speaking to like the regulation aspect of like, are those regulations written in a way that will actually allow for proper guidance on how to be inclusive, for example, or do they need to be perhaps rethought or made in a way that is reflective of these challenges that we've all listed here? So maybe we'll transition to the next question. We can always go back as well. I do see that there's one thing been added to this one here. What examples have you seen in your workplace or profession of design that has incorporated universal design, either from the outset or after feedback was given? So, the last one was kind of like, what wasn't working? What have you observed? Have you seen anything that, has actually incorporated some of these principles or principles that you would like to share? So the one here is our websites and postings were revised to support universal design elements, image tags, alternative text, etc.
Not a lot of examples.
Okay, well now engineering buildings have email bathrooms, not just mail.
Yeah, so I'm sure that was after feedback was given, that occurred. But yeah, I've heard similar stories at other schools where, there was one only in the basement, and not as many gender balanced bathrooms, perhaps. But yeah,
or universal gender bathrooms.
Exactly, yes.
Well, every building now has, especially government funded buildings, have entrances for safety people. There's just this latch on the door, right? You can push on it. You don't actually have that good strand. So there's a lot of things built in, but of course, all of those things are politically mandated through lots of advocacy. So Google has a software called Lighthouse where you can put your website on it, and we'll give you a lot of metrics about accessibility to the website for visually impaired people. Well, one involved that's colorblind. I envision that publications, journals, and filter your manuscripts, but it's colorblind.
Yep. Yep, great points in terms of, potentially some tools available, right, to help with the process. But again, it comes down to like, are you required to do it? Perhaps if you're not required to do it, right, how are you going to do it? I guess, I definitely like that colorblind, I put forth to, my research group, consider certain color palettes that are colorblind friendly in general. There's a lot of research in this area. So it's not like these are not studied concepts and that you're shooting in the dark in terms of trying to figure out how to potentially consider some of these factors, but rather you can find that information and you can build in some of these things to again have a broader audience be able to actually understand what you're trying to communicate in your work. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So another one came in. I worked in a building that had no elevator. It's a part of a remodel. An elevator was added. that enabled access for many additional people. Obviously that is, I think our elevator is working here again, but it was not working for a bit as well. But yeah, obviously making places more accessible in general, that can certainly just have really broad benefits, allow people to use lots of different types of facilities and things like that. I guess maybe I'll pose the modification of this question. Is universal design only accomplished through feedback? Or are there any situations where perhaps we are thinking with forethought in terms of these factors? Or is it primarily, maybe at this point, usually after feedback, that we address these concerns?
I think it's only if there's feedback or profit to be made. I'm gonna say it, but I have to think that Aaron's, a little bit hit on the spot there. We like to think of ourselves as, being moral people, but I think often it's pretty hard to start to see that profit margin more, and that's going to drive it.
I think that people are doing system modeling or whatever, right? You guys could take a minute or two to consider where their needs might be incorporated in whatever thing you're building. You're getting ahead of like that technical debt stuff that you're talking about, right? Secondly, if somebody's going to come back and say, hey, we need a retrofit on the system, that's a cost. And eventually, this doesn't make a lot. That's monetary. Yeah, it all boils down. But if you're doing it in advance, still, but then why are you doing this? Because it could eventually cost, which would mean that you will do a feedback that's going to happen. Everything, in my experience, in the professional world, every single company was talking about how, they're super green or they're, super inclusive, right? It's just because they're trying to corner a specific section of the market, which is money. And so whenever you're seeing the system, whatever mobile intensity they have, it's kind of having
what I'll do is I'll tag on to that, because I think what we've done many times is in a short-sighted way said, here's where the money is. The great example is the skin tone, right? They went out and said, we want this device to work for everybody, right? And they didn't consider everybody that would be using it. So that's the kind of retrofit that I think Kevin's more getting at. Not the one where they said, oh, this is we're right and this is the profit, right? We don't want that profit. They just missed part of the market. They didn't consider the universal use of it, or as much as they could perceive at the time.
Probably nuts.
Yeah, I agree.
Just one here that maybe what these new service incentive structure, but that I have. So like, how would you integrate inclusivity into it? Sort of souls the capitalist environment in big business, which is rather short-sighted. So that's more to talk about specific instances.
Well, I think it's like almost like systems engineering, right? For years, people would build something thinking this is the end, I'm going to get from here to there, but they didn't engineer the system until they got to the end and realized it's not doing what we wanted it to do. Yeah. So they had to go back, fix it. Like I heard the law of conservation systems engineering. All systems are engineered, some with duct tape and hang wire, right? So they bang into place afterwards. What we're saying is, can we reach our objective in a better way first time through? Some of our objective being we're trying to make this, we're saying it's universal, or we're saying it meets a market size, but we're literally missing part of the market. Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do. Not just that they're saying I'm ignoring that, I don't want that market. They're saying we want it, and then the product they build doesn't do it.
Yeah, no, I think it might be a process. That might be a side, a side effect of a bigger process there. That the people made a product to market as fast as they could, and then not make design spending again when they would expect, right? As a result. So, and that's like the market chases money, but it doesn't always do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, again, the idea like rethinking our initial assumptions of what we want the product to be, because that feedback mechanism of, oh, we missed the huge segments, for example, maybe that's the key factor of the success or failure of the thing you're putting forth. So if you think about, I mean, that's how I was kind of getting, you think about it from the onset, you're not waiting for that feedback, and maybe you wouldn't have the opportunity to get that feedback because the product failed or was not able to come to market, or even get it into the hands of any users in the first place to get that feedback. So I think thinking about some of these principles from the onset might actually allow certain technologies, certain things that you want to put forth to actually have a more higher likelihood chance to be realized, because you're, instead of waiting to figure out what's not working, you're kind of building in those proper inclusive assumptions from the get-go.
Because what I thought of too, though, is like if you yourself are in some underrepresented group that hasn't been designed to in the past, then you're driven almost by, this is what you've experienced. So now this is, a drive for you and maybe for at least the particular group that you represent.
That's going into the market.
Well, I think they don't always, they're not contradictory, to LinkedIn. Pursue the objectives that are inclusive and also promote money.
I mean, you're right in the sense that the person itself, themselves, is going to be more than a global health with the benefit they're experiencing at the same time. But if there's no market for it, they're not going to go for it. They have to be able to do some money off it, otherwise their business won't sustain their product. So there has to be both. You have to have a market for it. So even if you're doing it for sure in the regions, if one is not there, obviously not.
Or less the cost is usual.
Or zero, yeah.
All of the value is obviously that you get to talk about it.
But how often is that?
Well,
There's like values like brand loyalty and sustainability that people start caring more and more about. So you know that the company that you're purchasing is a more inclusive company in many different ways, then you're more likely to buy from them. So you might not be directly able to directly make money, but it would just improve the company's image overall, and that could help, channel more money to the company.
Sure, and branding that from that perspective, yes, I would agree with you. And still the concept in mind, but at the same time, the branding is more would make more sense. So that
So, and I think one other thing that we could be thinking about is having products that are maybe more agile, that can adapt to changing environments in terms of, a new segment can come up. We don't know if that's going to come up, but if we have a more flexible product or a product that could serve that segment from the get-go, you have maybe more opportunities in the future that maybe have very neutral costs. I'm thinking in the machine learning case, getting data that's more inclusive is not really that much more expensive, right? It's just knowing that that's what you need to collect, right? Instead of spending all this time in one space, you are more balancing it over a more broad space.
And that kind of gets to the third question, but I also know we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
That transitions to the role of machine learning a little bit, because I think that machine learning is a very dangerous anti-inclusive force in reality, because it just looks at data and classification from data and can't make any creative assumptions from data. So if it concludes that the market for smartphones is only white men, then we'll say make smartphones. So does anyone have some thoughts on how we possibly reduce the uninclusive outputs of machine learning? I would research the what was it? There's a photo identification software that identified members with darker skin as chemicals, and narrow. So I probably look at that and see how it fixed. Well, yeah, I'm sure they fixed it and just even recognize that. Sure, but if they fixed it, that means that the method exists by which they fixed it, so you can do that in the bit. I mean, you have to have the correlation variables programmed in. Yeah. So if you have a diversity design that includes broad diversity conditions, you get models that represent that. The challenge may still be that, yeah, it makes them come and say, target harmony is colors get one method that drives us. But you know, we have to include that into the data relationships specifically. Is a little more supervisory versus just the automatic. So yeah, so the theorist, the automatic ones, we just want to see this has the highest 95% completion factor. I'm going to just drop the ones that don't. AI on supervised AI is also fundamentally very aggregated. So like image generation is often produce fewer new images than their training that stuff.
So we're at the top of the hour. Let me make sure we go through the actions you can take if you want to continue this. Sorry, there you go. So hopefully, Ingrid, you're still there if you want to go ahead and talk about these slides quickly.
Sure. Yes. So yeah, we have a couple opportunities for students who maybe really enjoyed this conversation today. And kind of like thinking about inclusivity and these types of things. So we do have in our department a DEI student subcommittee, which was established as an opportunity for systems students to self-organize around basically any topic or initiative or anything that they find important. And our department provides support and even funding to those students for anything that they deem would be impactful for our department. Just some examples in previous years, kind of hosting a welcome social for new students, including online students. They've hosted guest speakers from groups like Society of Women Engineers. And these students also kind of serve as a student voice for our department-wide DEI committee. So if you are interested in that, you can reach out to Deb or me, or our current chair of the DEI committee is Erica Miller. We also do have on our website a page that we post events to, so student and or like faculty and staff focused events. And so you can always check this out and see what might be coming up around campus or around the College of Engineering. And then the last, and yeah, that page also has a place for you. If we are missing something, you can submit an event to us so we can post it. And then the very last thing I wanted to quickly mention is that there is a new kind of seminar course available to students from any department, like STEM related department across campus. This is specifically for understanding more about oppression and inequality in science fields. And this is taught by 3 graduate students in STEM at CSU, and it's for any student in STEM at CSU, graduate students in STEM. And it's really just to build community for those students and kind of interdisciplinary, interdepartmental connections. So it's a seminar course, it's pass fail, it's got pretty flexible assignment options. They bring food often for the class. So it's a really good community for those who are interested in that. And this will be offered in the fall of 2023. Again, there's some information here about the CRN if you wanted to register, or you can always contact Deb or me for more info.
And we will plan on sharing the slides so you can get it from there as well. And then maybe finally as well, if you have thoughts on future topics you want us to discuss, feel free to just directly share it with any of us on that was listed on the first slide on this particular committee. We're very interested in hearing, things you might want to talk about going forward. The Jamboard will continue to stay up, so if you want to add anything else to that, or go back to that and look at some of those examples, please feel free to do that. We didn't get to all the questions, but there is more questions for you to think about if you have time to do that. And again, please feel free to share. I guess, with that, thank you all for attending today. I'll stick around for a little bit more. I haven't gotten any pizza yet, but yeah, thanks for participating and sharing. And I look forward to more discussions like this in the future.
I'm not actively jamming.
Ingrid, do you know if they would be open to offering a on-campus or an online section of that course? Do you know these individuals in particular?
So it sounds like right now, because it's still like kind of an experimental type seminar, and a lot of the course is built around kind of that classroom community experience. Right now, they are not planning to offer an online section, but if this really blows up, it's probably something they would look at kind of trying to figure out how that would work.
Yep, that's good to know. Might something to share with them that we might have interested students.
Yep.
Definitely. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.